Zanelli's Curls was located in one of Yuntville's most unassuming neighborhoods. The small space, with peeling paint on the walls and cracked tiles on the floor, was the only place where many local women could afford professional hair care. Thandiwe Onyeshi stepped into the salon, and the bell on the door jingled. 51 years had left its mark on her face, but her eyes still glowed with youthful optimism. "Thandiwe!" exclaimed Zanele Habibi, putting down her scissors and turning around in her chair. "I thought you were coming tomorrow." 29-year-old Zanele was a bright spot in this dreary neighborhood. Her own hair changed weekly. It was now dyed a rich purple with flecks of silver strands. "I decided to come today," Thandiwe smiled, taking off her shabby coat. "I have a shift at the Bertram's house tomorrow, and they recently got a puppy who likes to jump on guests. I don't want my new hairdo to get damaged." Thandiwe worked as a cleaner in rich houses on the outskirts of the city. It was hard work with low pay, but it made it possible to support the small apartment that Thandiwe had rented since her husband's death 3 years ago. Zanele pointed to a vacant chair. "Have a seat. I'll be done with Miss Amara in 10 minutes. Thandiwe nodded and immersed herself in a shabby fashion magazine from 2 years ago. She paid no attention to the conversations of the other customers, mostly gossip about the locals and complaints about the ever-increasing prices. Her thoughts were occupied with other things. When the last customer left, Zanele approached Thandiwe, twirling her hairbrush in her hands. "So, what are we doing today? Regular styling or something special?" Thandiwe swallowed nervously. "Something special. Yeah, I have a date." Zanele froze, then broke into a wide smile. "A date? Thandiwe Onyeshi, you kept it a secret. Tell me now." Thandiwe felt the color flood her face. She was rarely the center of attention, and such interest in her private life was embarrassing. "His name is Kwame. He works as a bartender at the Blue Crocodile." "That new bar by the marina?" Zanele whistled. "I hear it has a younger crowd." Thandiwe nodded, feeling uncertainty rise to her throat. "He's 31. He spotted me when I went in there for a drink after work at the Sutherlands. Their house is right across the street from the bar." Zanele began brushing Thandiwe's hair, studying it thoughtfully in the mirror. "So, what, he just walked up and talked? He brought me a free cocktail. Said he hadn't seen such an elegant woman in his establishment in a long time." Zanele's fingers froze in her friend's dark hair for a moment. A free cocktail and a compliment from the young bartender? Something's not right here, Thandi. Are you sure he doesn't want something, you know? Thandiwe looked away. "I'm not a naive girl, Zanele. Of course he wants this. But it's mutual. After Amika died, I had no one. 3 years of loneliness is too long." Zanele sighed, starting to trim the ends of Thandiwe's hair. "I'm not judging you, friend. I'm just worried. Men of his age don't usually seek serious relationships with women of our generation." Thandiwe allowed herself a slight smile. "You say our generation, but you're only 29. I'm 51. That's a big difference." "Age is just a number," Zanele said. "Still, be careful. How long have you two been in touch?" 2 weeks. He gave me his number after that first night. We've been texting, and yesterday he called and asked me out. Tonight. "Where are you going?" "The Blue Crocodile. He'll be working until 8, and then he offered to stay and have dinner there." Zanele nodded, cutting off another strand. "Good thing it's a public place." She intercepted Thandiwe's disgruntled look. "Sorry, professional paranoia. Heard too many stories from clients." "You sound just like my daughter," Thandiwe sighed. "Aisha thinks I'm making a mistake too. Does Aisha know?" "I mentioned that I met someone. She assumed it was someone my age from the church. When she finds out the truth." "She's just worried about you," Zanele said softly. "So am I. But you are a grown woman and you deserve to be happy. If this Kwame makes you smile, well, I'm happy for you." An hour later, Thandiwe looked at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing her own reflection. Zanele had created an elegant hairstyle that threw off her 10 years. She also insisted on light makeup. "You look amazing," Zanele said sincerely. "That Kwame can't resist." Thandiwe blushed, but gratitude shone in her eyes. "Thank you, both for the hair and for not judging." "Hey," Zanele squeezed her shoulder lightly. "You're my friend. I just want you to be happy and careful." That evening, Thandiwe nervously walked into the Blue Crocodile. The music was louder than she remembered, and the customers were younger. Some of them threw surprised glances at her, but Thandiwe tried to ignore them. She focused on the bar where a tall man with dreadlocks was mixing a cocktail. Kwame Darius looked exactly as she remembered, trim, with broad shoulders and shrewd eyes the color of dark amber. When he spotted Thandiwe, a smile blossomed on his face, lighting up his entire face. "Thandiwe!" he exclaimed, stepping around the bar and approaching her. "You made it!" She smiled embarrassedly. "I promised, didn't I?" "Yes, but—" He gave her an admiring look. "You look amazing. That hair looks great on you." Thandiwe felt a warmth spread through her body. It had been too long since a man had looked at her with such frank admiration. "Thank you. My friend is the best hairdresser in town." "She definitely knows her stuff." Kwame nodded. "Listen, I have to finish my shift. About another hour. Do you mind?" "Of course not." "Sit at the bar. What are you drinking?" On the house, Thandiwe ordered wine and spent the next hour watching Kwame work. He moved behind the bar with the grace of a dancer, mixing cocktails and chatting with customers. A few times he glanced at her and winked, making Thandiwe feel like a lovesick schoolgirl. When his shift was over, Kwame came out from behind the counter and joined her, bringing 2 glasses of wine. Finally, he exhaled. "I hate working on Friday. Too many people." "More tips," Thandiwe remarked. Kwame laughed. "A practical woman. I like that." The conversation flowed easily and casually. Kwame said he had moved to Yachtville 3 years ago from Chicago. The bartending job was temporary. He dreamed of opening his own shop. "A workshop?" Thandiwe interjected. "You're a carpenter?" Kwame hesitated, taking a sip of wine. "Not exactly. I deal in specialized products, handmade, niche market." Sounds intriguing. "They're pretty specialized items," Kwame replied evasively. "Perhaps I'll show you sometime, if you're interested." They continued their conversation, jumping from topic to topic: music, movies, favorite foods. They discovered a shared love of old jazz songs and French cuisine. Time flew by unnoticed. Around midnight, Kwame offered to walk Thandiwe home. She agreed, and they stepped out into the cool night air. The streets of Yachtville were quiet and deserted. "I really enjoyed the evening," Kwame said as they approached Thandiwe's apartment building. "Me too," she replied sincerely. They stopped at the entrance. Thandiwe felt her heart pounding in her chest. Kwame took a step closer. "I would like to see you again," he said, gently taking her hand. "I'd like that too," Thandiwe whispered. Kwame leaned down and kissed her softly. His lips were warm and surprisingly gentle. When he pulled away, there was a fire burning in his eyes that Thandiwe hadn't seen in a very long time. "Good night, Thandiwe," he whispered. "Good night, Kwame." In the weeks that followed, their relationship grew rapidly. Thandiwe spent every spare minute with Kwame. She would come to the bar after work, and sometimes they would meet at his apartment on the other side of town. One evening, Kwame showed her his workshop, a small room filled with various tools and materials. The shelves were neatly arranged with leather goods, metal parts, and other items that Thandiwe could not immediately identify. "So this is what you do," she said, looking around the workshop. Kwame nodded, watching her reaction. "These are items for special hobbies, for adults who want to diversify their intimate lives." Thandiwe picked up a beautiful leather bracelet with a metal clasp. This is very beautiful work, she said sincerely. Thank you, Kwame smiled. I put my heart into every piece. Safety and comfort come first for me. He told her about his philosophy, how important it is to create quality, safe items for such intimate moments, how he carefully selects materials, testing each product. People trust me with their most precious things, their bodies and their feelings, Kwame explained. I have no right to do anything carelessly. Thandiwe was touched by his seriousness about his craft. It was unexpected to see such responsibility and dedication in such a young man. With each meeting, Kwame gradually revealed to her the world of his hobbies, always carefully, without pressure. He was patient and attentive, never crossing boundaries that Thandiwe was not prepared to cross. This bought her up. The sense of security and respect he created, their intimate life developed gradually. Kwame never rushed things, but knew how to create an atmosphere in which Thandiwe herself wanted to experiment. She was discovering new facets of sensuality in herself that she had never even suspected before. You are an incredible woman, Kwame told her one day as they lay in his bed. So open, so bold. Many women half your age wouldn't dare to do what you do. Thandiwe smiled, snuggling against his chest. Perhaps I was just lucky to have a partner. Kwame stroked her hair. My friend is having a party on a yacht this Saturday. Do you want to go? Thandiwe raised herself on her elbow. A party? It's nothing special. Kwame shrugged. 10 or 15 people. Good music, drinks, appetizers. It's a small boat, but there's plenty of room for everyone. Yeah, I don't know, Thandiwe said uncertainly. Your friends will be there. They're much younger. Hey, Kwame turned her face to his. I don't care what they think. I want to be with you. Besides, a lot of them know about my case, and they're not the kind of people who will judge a person for age or looks. Thandiwe thought for a moment. The idea of spending the evening on a yacht sounded tempting. She hadn't been to a real party in years. Okay, she finally agreed. I'll go. Kwame smiled and kissed her. That's great. And, I have this idea. He hesitated. I recently finished a new project. It's a special gadgets, very elegant and, intense. Perhaps we could take them with us. There are private quarters on the yacht. Thandiwe felt a chill of excitement run down her spine. What kind of gear? It's a surprise, Kwame winked. But I think you'll like it. They open up a whole new dimension of sensation. And I'll be very careful, I promise. Thandiwe hesitated. During their relationship, Kwame had never once hurt her, had always been considerate of her boundaries and comfort. She trusted him. Okay, she nodded. I'm willing to give it a try. The next day, Thandiwe visited Zanele's hair salon again. Her friend was busy with a customer, but when she saw Thandiwe, she gestured for her to wait. You look happy, Zanele remarked when they were finally alone. Is everything okay? More than okay. Thandiwe couldn't hold back a smile. Kwame and I see each other almost every day. Zanele whistled. What a pace! And how is he? Is he still as attentive? He's amazing, Thandiwe replied sincerely. So caring, so gentle. He, showed me his workshop, told me what he does. What does he do? Zanele asked as she started working on Thandiwe's hair. He makes special objects for adults. Thandiwe lowered her voice. For a change of intimacy. Zanele froze for a moment. Wow, and how do you feel about that? I was shocked at first, Thandiwe admitted. But he takes his business so seriously and responsibly, all about safety, quality. It's impressive. And have you, tried any of his products? Zanele asked cautiously. Thandiwe blushed slightly. A little. He is very gentle, never presses. Everything happens at my pace. Zanele nodded, mulling over what she had heard. I'm happy for you. I really am. You deserve someone who will treat you with respect, even if it is a little unusual. Thandiwe smiled with relief. She had feared judgment, but Zanele, as always, proved to be understanding. He invited me to a party, on a yacht. On a yacht? Zanele's eyebrows went up. Sounds fancy. A friend of his is throwing it, this Saturday. Tandivi hesitated. He wants to bring some new products of his, for us to try. Zanele frowned. At the party? That's not too public? He said there were private quarters, Tandiwe explained, and his friends are understanding people. Zanele shook her head thoughtfully. I don't want to be a drag, but be careful, okay? Make sure you really want this and not just trying to please him. I do, Thandiwe said confidently. He makes me feel alive, desirable. He never hurts me, always asks how I feel. I trust him. Zanele smiled, squeezing her friend's shoulder. Then I'm happy for you. Just promise me you'll stay in touch. And if anything goes wrong, call me right away. I promise. Thandiwe nodded. As she left the salon, Zanele gave her a hug. Have fun, and remember, you deserve to be happy. Thandiwe walked home with a light heart. Talking to Zanele had calmed her last doubts. She was looking forward to Saturday, anticipating new sensations and experiences. Opportunities for true adventure didn't come along very often at her age. Maybe, she thought, sometimes it's worth the risk to feel truly alive. I realize there is a repetition of a phrase in the text. Let me rewrite part of chapter 2, avoiding this verbatim repetition. The yacht Sea Wind was bobbing on the waves at the marina when Thandiwe arrived at the dock on Saturday evening. She nervously adjusted her dress, simple but elegant, dark blue, long, sleeved, not too youthful but not old, fashioned either. Kwame was waiting for her at the gangway, dressed in a white shirt and dark jeans. His smile grew wider when he saw her. You have come, he said, extending his hand. I promised, Thandiwe replied, accepting his hand. Kwame's palm was warm and dry. His fingers squeezed her hand confidently. He helped her aboard, where about a dozen guests had already gathered, mostly young men between the ages of 25 and 35. The music wasn't playing too loud, allowing them to talk without raising their voices. Guys, Kwame announced, this is Thandiwe. Several people turned around, their gazes lingering briefly on Thandiwe, assessing her age before returning to their conversations. One girl with bright pink hair, wearing a black top and jeans, approached them, holding a glass with something bright green in it. Hi, I'm Nala, she introduced herself, extending her free hand. Kwame has told me a lot about you. Thandiwe shook her hand, feeling slightly relieved at the friendly welcome. It's nice to meet you. Nala is an old friend of mine from Chicago, Kwame explained. And my best customer. Nala playfully poked him in the shoulder. Don't listen to him. I'm just a connoisseur of quality things. Kwame makes the best accessories in town. Thandiwe felt the color flood her face. Come, I'll introduce you to the others. Kwame took her gently under the elbow. And we'll find you something to drink. He led her around the deck, introducing her to different groups of people. There was Jabari, the owner of the yacht, a tall man with a neatly trimmed beard and shrewd eyes. Imani and Toro, a married couple who both worked in medicine. Adonis, a DJ with many tattoos on his arms, and a few others whose names Thandiwe couldn't remember right away. Kwame brought her a glass of white wine, and they settled down on the soft couches at the stern of the yacht. From here, they had a view of the city, its lights reflected in the dark water. The music changed to something with a deeper bass, and a few of the guests began to dance in the center of the deck. Your friends seem interesting, Thandiwe remarked, taking a sip of wine. Kwame smiled. They're good people, a little eccentric but sincere. I've known most of them since Chicago. And they're all know about your business? Yes, Kwame nodded. Many of them are my customers, or have helped me spread the word about my products. There is no judgment in this circle. Thandiwe nodded, sipping more wine. Despite Nala's friendliness and the calm atmosphere, she still felt out of place. The age difference was obvious, not just between her and Kwame, but between her and all the other guests. She noticed some of them casting curious glances at her when they thought she couldn't see. One of the young men, Thandiwe couldn't remember his name, approached them, swaying a little more than the rocking of the yacht allowed. "Kwame, old man," he clapped Kwame on the shoulder. "You must show Thandiwe your new wares. I saw them in the workshop last week. Impressive work." Kwame cast a quick glance at Thandiwe, then looked at his friend again. "Perhaps later, Bakari. We've only just arrived." Bakari grinned, raising his glass. Of course. Just don't stay too long. Jabari will soon take the yacht out into the bay for fireworks." As Bakari stepped away, Thandiwe turned to Kwame. "What products was he talking about?" Kwame looked a little embarrassed. "The ones I mentioned to you. The special devices I recently finished." "And you showed them to your friends?" "Only Bakari," Kwame explained. "He's helping me with some of the technical details. He's an engineer." Thandiwe nodded, feeling a strange mixture of curiosity and discomfort. The thought of other people knowing about their plans for the evening was both exciting and disconcerting. The yacht began to pull away from the marina, moving slowly into the dark waters of the bay. The lights of the city gradually receded, and the music grew louder. Most of the guests were now dancing or gathered around the makeshift bar where Jabari was mixing cocktails. "Would you like a tour of the yacht?" Kwame offered, leaning closer to Thandiwe so she could hear him through the music. She nodded, finishing her wine. Kwame took her hand and led her away from the noisy group. They went down the narrow stairs to the lower deck where it was quieter and cooler. "Jabari's yacht isn't the biggest," Kwame explained as he led her down the corridor, "but it's very comfortable. There are 3 cabins, a small kitchen, and a salon." He opened the door to one of the cabins, a compact but elegant space with a double bed, built-in closets, and a small porthole. "This cabin is guest quarters," Kwame said, letting Thandiwe inside. "Jabari said we can use it if we want to have some privacy." Thandiwe entered the cabin, feeling her heart begin to beat faster. Kwame closed the door behind them and turned on the dimmed lights. Muffled sounds of music and laughter came from behind the bulkhead. "It's cozy in here," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. Kwame walked over to the closet and opened it, pulling out a small black bag. "I left it here earlier," he explained, seeing Thandiwe's questioning look. "Didn't want to attract attention when we came aboard." He sat down on the edge of the bed and patted the spot next to him. Thandiwe sat down, feeling the mattress sagging slightly under their weight. "You were talking about some special devices," she reminded him. Kwame nodded, opening the bag. "I've been working on them for months. They're a modern adaptation of a very old design." He pulled out 2 objects that looked like metal pears with dainty handles. Each was about the size of a large apple, made of polished metal, with thin lines marking the segments. "These were Inquisitor's pears?" Thandiwe asked, recognizing the shape from the history books she had once read. Kwame looked surprised. "Do you know about them?" "I've read about medieval torture," she explained. "But weren't they instruments of pain?" "The original ones, yes," Kwame nodded. "But I've completely rethought the concept. These are designed for pleasure, not pain. They expand in a very smooth and controlled manner. This mechanism allows you to adjust the degree of opening to the nearest millimeter." Thandiwe gingerly took one of the pears, feeling the cool metal in her palm. The device was heavier than she expected, and surprisingly smooth. "Are they for different parts of the body?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Kwame nodded. "One is designed for oral use, the other for vaginal use. The sizes and angles of expansion are adapted accordingly." He looked into her eyes. "But only if you want to try it. There's no pressure." Thandiwe turned the pear in her hands, studying it. A strange excitement was mixed with apprehension. Over the course of their relationship, she had gotten used to Kwame treating her with care and respect. His attentiveness to her comfort and desires gave her a deep sense of security. "How do they work?" she asked. Kwame showed the mechanism on the handle. "This is a regulator. You turn it, and the segments of the pair slowly slide apart." He demonstrated, and the metal sections gently parted, increasing the diameter of the device. "See? Total control. At any moment, you can stop or reduce the opening." Thandiwe watched the demonstration, feeling curiosity growing inside her. "And are they safe?" "Absolutely," Kwame said confidently. "I've tested them repeatedly. The mechanism is very reliable." He reversed the knob, and the segments closed again. No jerks or sudden movements. Everything is smooth and controlled. Thandiwe took a deep breath, making a decision. "Okay," she said. "I want to give it a try." Kwame smiled, but there was more tenderness than triumph in his smile. "We'll go as slow as you want," he promised, "and we can stop at any time." He set the pairs on the bedside table and turned to Thandiwe, cradling her gently in his arms. His kiss was gentle, unhurried, as if they had all the time in the world. Gradually, their clothes ended up on the floor. Kwame's hands were warm and sure, exploring Thandiwe's body with admiration and care. He whispered compliments to her that made her feel beautiful and desirable despite her age and imperfections. When Thandiwe was already fully aroused, Kwame reached to the nightstand for one of the pairs, the one for vaginal use. "Are you sure?" he asked again. Thandiwe nodded, her breathing frequent with arousal and mild excitement. Kwame lubricated the device with a special gel, then slowly began to insert it. The metal was cool, but was quickly warmed by her body heat. The sensation was strange, but not unpleasant. "How are you?" Kwame asked when the pair was fully in. "Good," Thandiwe exhaled. "Unusual, but interesting." Kwame smiled. "Now, for the most interesting part. I'm going to turn the regulator very slowly. You will tell me when to stop or if you feel discomfort." He began to gently turn the mechanism. Thandiwe felt the segments of the pair begin to separate inside her, creating a sensation of fullness that was new and intense, but not painful. "Is everything all right?" Kwame asked, watching her reaction carefully. "Yes," nodded Thandiwe. "Keep going. It doesn't hurt yet." Kwame gave a couple more turns of the regulator, and Thandiwe gasped at the new sensations. "Shall we stop here?" he asked. "Yes," she exhaled. "So, good." Kwame leaned in to kiss her, his hands caressing her body, adding new sensations to the unusual feeling of expansion inside. "Now the second one," he whispered, taking the oral pair. "Ready?" Thandiwe nodded, opening her mouth. Kwame gently inserted the device, letting her get used to the sensation of the metal in her mouth. "I will expand it very slowly," he said. "Tap my hand if it gets uncomfortable." He began to turn the regulator, and the segments of the oral pair began to spread apart as well. The sensation was strange. Thandiwe's mouth was gradually filling up, but she could still breathe through her nose and felt no pain. When both pairs were expanded to a comfortable limit, Kwame pulled back, looking at Thandiwe with obvious admiration. "You're incredible," he whispered. "How are you feeling?" Thandiwe couldn't answer because of the device in her mouth, but she nodded, letting him know she was fine. The sensations were intense, but pleasurable. Fullness, stretching, vulnerability, and strange power all at the same time. Kwame continued to caress her body, and Thandiwe could feel her arousal growing. When she was close to orgasm, Kwame reached for the vaginal pair regulator again. "Shall we increase it a little more?" he asked, and Thandiwe, after a moment of thought, nodded. He gave the regulator another twist, and suddenly something changed. Instead of a smooth expansion, Thandiwe felt a sharp jerk and a sharp pain, as if something had broken inside the device. Her eyes went wide with horror and pain. "Shit!" exclaimed Kwame, trying to turn the regulator in the opposite direction, but the mechanism wouldn't budge. "Something's wrong." Panic gripped Thandiwe as she felt the metal segments continue to expand inside her without control. She tried to scream, but the device in her mouth prevented her from doing so. She waved her arms desperately, trying to let Kwame know to remove the devices. Kwame frantically tried to pull out the vaginal pair, but the extended segments were stuck. His face turned pale with horror. "Oh my God, oh my God," he repeated. Something had broken in the mechanism. At that moment, the oral pair also jerked, and Thandiwe felt the segments expand sharply in her mouth, stretching her lips and gums to their limits. The pain was unbearable. She tried to spit the device out, but it was already too big. Blood began to ooze from the corners of her mouth and from between her legs. Thandiwe's eyes filled with tears of pain and fear. Kwame was thrashing around the cabin in panic. "I don't know what to do," he shouted. "The mechanism is broken. I can't get them out." He tried turning the regulator again, but to no avail. The devices continued to expand, tearing the delicate tissue. Thandiwe felt her strength leaving her. The pain was so intense that she began to lose consciousness. Her eyes looked pleadingly at Kwame, asking for help. But Kwame, seeing the blood and realizing that the irreparable had happened, succumbed to panic fear. He recoiled from the bed, his hands trembling. "Yeah, I have to get help," he mumbled, but his voice was filled with terror and uncertainty. Instead of running for help immediately, Kwame began to frantically dress, his movements nervous and erratic. "I'll find Jabari," he said without looking at Thandiwe. "He will help." But when he was fully dressed, fear seemed to take complete possession of him. Instead of going up on deck for help, he slipped out of the cabin and rushed to the lifeboat at the stern of the yacht. Jabari Nyong'o discovered the body at dawn. Returning from the upper deck, he noticed that the door to the guest cabin was ajar. Knocking and receiving no answer, he peered inside. The scream that escaped his throat woke up all the remaining guests on the boat. By the time the Coast Guard and police arrived on the scene, the sun had already risen over the bay. The yacht was cordoned off and witnesses were gathered in the salon for questioning. Nala sat in the corner with her arms wrapped around herself, her pink hair disheveled, and her eyes red from crying. Bakari paced nervously back and forth, stopping occasionally to look out the window at the bustling police officers on the deck. Detectives Aquafor and Sembene, a tall man with graying temples, introduced himself, showing his badge to the medical examiner. Standing next to him was a slender woman with short hair and an attentive gaze. "Dr. Adetola," the medical examiner nodded. "I was just finishing my preliminary examination." Detective Azizi Okwafor nodded, his tired face expressing no emotion. In his 20 years with the Yuntville Police Department, he had seen a lot of things, but this morning was going to be a particularly rough one. "What do we got?" Detective Dalila Sembene asked, pulling out a notebook. "Female, approximately 50 to 50, 5 years old, African, American," Dr. Adetola began. Cause of death was massive blood loss due to lacerations of the oral cavity and vagina. Strange injuries, I've never seen anything like that before. What could have caused them? Azizi leaned over to look into the cabin where forensics was photographing the crime scene. "We managed to extract 2 metal devices," the doctor pointed to the plastic bags of evidence. "Looks like some kind of, sex toys, but they're unnaturally dilated as if the mechanism had malfunctioned." Dalila stepped closer, examining the strange, pear-shaped metal objects. "These things, did they explode inside her?" "Not exactly." The doctor shook his head. "It looks like the trigger mechanism broke, and they continued to expand unchecked. From the looks of it, the victim died of shock and blood loss. The time of death was between midnight and 2 in the morning." Azizi nodded glumly. "You got an ID?" "Yes. They found a driver's license in her purse." Thandiwe Onyeshi, 51 years old, resided in the East District of Yuntville. Who called it in? Dalila asked, making notes in her notebook. The owner of the boat, Jabari Nyong'o. He discovered the body around 6 in the morning and called the emergency services immediately. Azizi looked towards the saloon where the witnesses were waiting. Let's go talk to them. The detectives spent the next 2 hours interviewing party guests. Gradually, a picture of what had happened emerged. Thandiwe came to the yacht with a man named Kwame Darius, whom no one there had seen since last night. He's an old friend of mine, Nala explained, nervously rubbing the bracelet on her wrist. We've known each other since Chicago. He moved here 3 years ago, works as a bartender at the Blue Crocodile. What else does he do? Azizi asked. He makes specialty items. Nala hesitated. For adults, BDSM accessories mostly. He's very talented. And these devices found in the cabin, Dalila began. Must be his work, Nala nodded. He was showing Bakari and me his new project the other day. Some kind of modified inquisitorial pairs. He was very proud of them. Inquisitor pairs? Azizi interjected. Medieval torture tools, Dalila explained. But as far as I know, they were used for something else. Kwame remodeled them for pleasure, Nala explained. He was always obsessed with safety. I don't understand how this could have happened. Bakari, who had been silent until then, spoke up. I helped him design the mechanism. It had to be fail-safe. We tested them repeatedly. Then what went wrong? Dalila asked. Bakari shook his head. I don't know. Maybe a manufacturing defect, or... He fell silent, then continued more quietly. Perhaps he deliberately altered the design. Are you suggesting that this was premeditated murder? Azizi stared intently at Bakari. I don't know, the man answered sincerely. Kwame never showed any aggression, but the fact that he disappeared... When was the last time you saw Kwame? Dalila asked. Around 11 in the evening, Jabari replied. He and Thandiwe went down to the cabin and I never saw him again. In the morning, I noticed that one of the lifeboats was missing. The detectives looked at each other. The picture was getting clearer. We need to check his apartment and places where he might be hiding, Azizi said, rising. And we need to find Thandiwe's loved ones. Let them know what happened. Thandiwe's driver's license listed her home address in the city's eastern district. The modest apartment on the 4th floor of an old building looked neat and tidy. On the refrigerator, detectives found a magnet with the name of Zanelle's Curls Hair Salon and a phone number. Maybe it's a friend of hers, Dalila suggested. It's worth checking. The hair salon was a small establishment a few blocks from Thandiwe's house. A woman with bright purple hair was cutting a customer's hair when the detectives entered. Zanelle Habibi? Azizi asked, showing his badge. The woman froze, the scissors in her hand trembling. Yes, it's me. Is something wrong? Can we talk in private? Zanelle apologized to her client and led the detectives into a back room that served as a storage and resting place. Are you friends with Thandiwe Onyeshi? Dalila asked. Zanelle's face changed. Yes, she is my best friend. What happened to her? Azizi and Dalila looked at each other, and Dalila said softly, Ms. Habibi, we're sorry, but Thandiwe is dead. Her body was discovered this morning on a yacht in the bay. Zanelle swayed, and Azizi quickly moved a chair so she could sit down. It's impossible, she whispered. I spoke to her yesterday, before the party. She was so happy. The party on the boat? Azizi clarified. Yes. Zanelle ran her hand over her face, as if trying to erase the shock. Kwame, her new boyfriend, invited her. He works as a bartender, but he makes some specialty items. For BDSM? Dalila asked. Zanelle nodded. Thandiwe told me. She was intrigued. Kwame was the first man in her life after her husband died. He treated her well, was attentive. I don't understand what could have happened. We believe Kwame might have been involved in her death, Azizi said. He disappeared from the yacht during the night. Zanele shook her head. No, that's impossible. He wouldn't have hurt her intentionally. He was caring. Thandiwe trusted him. Do you have any idea where he might be hiding? Azizi asked. He has an apartment somewhere on the west side of town, Zanele replied, and a workshop. Thandiwe said it was in an industrial area, in an old warehouse building. That information turned out to be key. After checking Kwame's address, detectives found his apartment empty, but among the bills they found a rent receipt for a space in the industrial area. A police SWAT team surrounded the old warehouse towards evening. Inside, in a makeshift workshop filled with tools and strange contraptions, they found Kwame Darius. He was sitting at a workbench, taking apart a device similar to those found in Thandiwe's body. Kwame Darius, you are under arrest on suspicion of murdering Thandiwe Onyesha, Azizi announced, as the officers handcuffed Kwame. Kwame did not resist. His face was blank, his eyes red from crying. It was an accident, he said quietly. I didn't want her to die. At the police station, Kwame sat in the interrogation room, staring at the desk. Azizi and Delilah entered, carrying folders of documents and bags of evidence. Tell me what happened on the boat, Azizi began. Kwame looked up at him with tired eyes. We were in the cabin. I showed her my new products, the modified inquisitorial pairs, explained how they worked, that they were safe. We started using them. And what went wrong? Delilah asked. Everything was fine at first, Kwame continued. The devices worked as designed. But then, he swallowed. When I turned the regulator a little more, something broke. The mechanism jammed, and the pairs began to expand without control. And instead of helping her, you ran away. Azizi's voice sounded contemptuous. I panicked, Kwame whispered. I tried to pull the devices out, but they were stuck. There was blood everywhere. I didn't know what to do. I thought about going for help, but then I just got scared. You left her to die, Delilah stated. I never meant to hurt her. Kwame covered his face with his hands. I loved her. These devices were supposed to be safe. I tested them many times. Then what went wrong? Azizi asked. Kwame raised his head. I discovered the defect. After I escaped, I went back to the workshop and began to disassemble other specimens. In some of them, the locking mechanism was not calibrated correctly. At a certain pressure, it could fail. And you were aware of this risk? Delilah leaned forward. No! Exclaimed Kwame. I would never have put Thandiwe in danger deliberately. I just didn't check carefully enough. Forensics confirmed Kwame's words. The forensic lab had found a design flaw in the devices found at the crime scene. At a certain angle and pressure, the locking mechanism could indeed have failed, causing uncontrolled expansion. The prosecutor charged Kwame with manslaughter and leaving a person in danger. Although forensics confirmed the accident version, the fact that Kwame had left Thandiwe to die left no chance for leniency. The trial was set for early fall. The hall was full. Journalists, curious townspeople, friends of Kwame. Zanele sat in the front row, her hair now dyed black, a sign of mourning. Kwame looked aged and gaunt. He did not look up as the prosecutor read out the charge. His attorney presented evidence of a design defect in the devices, but did not dispute fleeing the scene. My client fully admits his responsibility for what happened, the defense attorney said. While Ms. Onyesha's death was the result of a tragic accident, his subsequent actions, or more accurately inactions, are inexcusable. He will live with that guilt for the rest of his life. The judge, an elderly woman with a discerning eye, listened carefully to both sides before passing sentence. Kwame Darius, she began, the court recognizes that Thandiwe Onyesha's death was not the result of a deliberate act on your part. However, your negligence in creating potentially dangerous devices and, more importantly, your decision to flee leaving a dying woman unassisted warrants serious punishment. The hall fell silent as the judge continued. The court sentences you to 8 years in prison, of which you must serve at least 5 years before you can qualify for parole. Kwame nodded silently, accepting the sentence. As the officers led him from the courtroom, he caught Zanele's gaze for a moment. There was no hatred in her eyes, only endless fatigue and pain. After the hearing was over, Zanele remained seated in her seat as the hall gradually emptied. Detective Dalila Sembeni approached her. "Are you all right?" she asked, taking a seat next to her. Zanele shook her head. "I don't know how to feel. Thandiwe was my best friend. She finally found someone who made her feel alive after so many years of being alone. And now..." She didn't finish the sentence. "Do you think the verdict is fair?" Dalila asked. "Fair?" Zanele grinned bitterly. "Nothing will bring Thandiwe back, but I realize it was an accident. Kwame never meant to hurt her. His real crime was cowardice." "Often the harshest sentences are the ones we pass on ourselves," Dalila said. Zanele nodded. "I blame myself for not being more persistent. I saw her insecurity, her fear of losing him if she gave up the experiments. I should have..." "You couldn't have known," Dalila interrupted her gently. "No one could have foreseen what would happen." Zanele stood up, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. "You know what the most ironic thing is? Thandiwe was always afraid of growing old alone. She used to say that it was better to die young than to live to a deep old age without love." Zanele paused. She had gotten both, love and an early death.